Good morning, Notre Dame fans, and welcome to the Tom and Tom Show. I'm Tom.
And I'm Tom.
And we are here for one reason and one reason only.
Notre Dame football.
Well, Tom, it's great to be back after missing last week due to circumstances beyond our control.
Way beyond our control.
How about a quick recap of the BYU-Notre Dame game?
Absolutely. Let's talk about it. You know, this was an interesting game going in. BYU had one of the top defenses coming into this Notre Dame game. I think a lot of people were using the word trap, right? It's between Stanford and a big game against Oklahoma. It is the right mixture for a trap game, but BYU is no slouch. Like I said, strong defense. They've had periodically good quarterback play, but at the end of the game, Notre Dame prevailed 17-14, where they were able to run the ball at will. I think Theo Riddick had his best game ever in a Notre Dame uniform, and Notre Dame demonstrated that they can run the ball, and in doing so, control the clock, and I think that was a great performance by Notre Dame against a very good rush defense.
Did you think the game was a little closer than you expected?
You know, it was. It was. I did expect that BYU was going to be able to stop Notre Dame's offense. I think we all expected that. However, Notre Dame was still able to rush. That showed great testament for the Notre Dame offense. However, one thing that did shock me is BYU's ability to score on the Notre Dame defense. However, Notre Dame's defense to that point still hadn't given up a rushing touchdown. So kudos to Bob Diaco and the defense in pulling it together and really getting another Notre Dame win.
Did you know that Notre Dame has not given up a touchdown in the first quarter of the entire season?
It's an amazing thing, isn't it?
It's great. If you're a defensive-minded football guy, kind of like I am, I really appreciate it. Now, last week, the then number 5 Fighting Irish prevailed against the then number 8 Oklahoma team in a game that really got me believing that this Notre Dame team in this season may be something special. Tom, your thoughts?
It's radio, so I can't be speechless, but I'm just sitting here still in amazement. You know, this game was, 5 days ago now, 6 days ago now, and I am still absolutely thrilled by Notre Dame's performance. Every single football pundit in the country picked Oklahoma. Everybody. The ESPN Game Day crew picked Oklahoma. Everyone picked the Sooners to win. So for the Irish to go out, just not only win. I mean, this wasn't a squeaker. This wasn't a field goal at the end. This was defensive dominance, showing that this defense is maybe one or two in the country out of all the defenses in major college football. And another great day for the offense to grow, to run the ball, to do some great passing situations. In my lifetime, there's been 2 Notre Dame wins that I think are this exciting. One is the 1988 National Championship game. One is a 2002 win over Florida State in Tallahassee, and this game. I mean, it was a special day if you're a Notre Dame fan.
You know, some of the Notre Dame highlights include Everett Golston throwing for 177 yards and plunged in for the decisive one-yard touchdown in the fourth quarter, and Manti Te'o bolstering his Heisman Trophy candidacy with a late interception. How many does that make?
5. That's 5 interceptions for Manti Te'o, who is probably number 2 in the Heisman running right now.
And has a good shot at it. Now, Notre Dame, no turnovers, 1 penalty. Tom, your thoughts on the game as a whole, but individually, who stood out too?
You know, Everett Golston stood out for me. I mean, he made some great throws. The guy has got a strong arm, and I think we all knew that going into the season. Even when he was recruited out of South Carolina as a high school athlete, we knew he had a good arm. He had a 50-yard pass early in the fourth quarter to Chris Brown, his first reception ever in a Notre Dame uniform. But more than the passes he made, the passes he didn't make. Yeah, he didn't have any touchdown passes, sure, but he threw the ball away. He made smart decisions. He looked not like a redshirt freshman. He looked like a junior or a senior. He played with the poise of an upperclassman. So I was as impressed with that 50-yard pass as I was with the throws he didn't make, trying to jam it into double or triple coverage that would have resulted in a turnover. Smart play by Everett Golston. I think you saw as a consequence of that, Notre Dame once again establishing the run, that the defense had to trust Golston's ability to pass, go downfield, but then they had to play balance. So they couldn't overload the box, and as a result, you had Sierra Wood and Theo Riddick once again have great rushing performances.
There's a lot of quarterback comparisons in the NFL. Now, I know Everett Golston's young in his career, but who would you compare him to as an NFL quarterback?
This is a bit of a stretch. I recognize that, but he kind of reminds me a little bit of an RG3 in the sense that he can create. He can innovate when a play looks broken. He can make something out of it. He also has a strong arm like RG3. Whether or not he gets into that pedigree, time will tell. But, when RG3 was an underclassman at Baylor, he did remind me a little bit of what Everett Golson is today at Notre Dame.
Despite winning their first 7 games for the first time in a decade, I'm talking about the Fighting Irish, Notre Dame came in as underdogs, but certainly didn't play like it. Now, individually, who stood out on the defense?
I just have to say Manti Te'o again. He had double-digit tackles. He had 2 tackles for loss. He had a sack and that brilliant diving interception. This is America's best college football player in my book. Granted, this is a Notre Dame football show, so we're a little biased. But so? He has energy, consistency, pride that goes deeper than just the jersey he wears on his back. He is everything that's right in college football, and he is what made Notre Dame's defense that dominant. He's the spirit of that defense. But I'll tell you something, too. Not enough credit goes to Bob Diaco and what he's done with the defense as the coordinator and what Brian Kelly did with the play calling. That was a wonderfully well-played game from the coach's end, from the player's end, and was just as balanced as Notre Dame could be.
Any doubts about how good Notre Dame really is, they should be fading away, as the Irish this year are the only team in the country with 4 wins against top 25 ranked teams, including 2 wins on the road. Now, number 3 ranked Notre Dame goes up against Pittsburgh, who visits South Bend this week. Now, Pittsburgh Panthers come in as an unranked team, but don't be fooled, Tom, because the last 4 meetings and the last 7 out of 8 games played between the 2 schools were decided by 8 points or less. Tom, your thoughts on Pitt?
Pitt is a rival. People don't talk about as much as Notre Dame, Michigan, Notre Dame, USC, Notre Dame, Stanford, but they're a rival. Notre Dame and Pitt have played over 60 times against each other throughout time. They always have tough games, like you mentioned, and Pitt can run the ball. Gino Cincinnati, their quarterback, is having the best year of his career. Ray Graham has had some wonderful rushing games, and, they've beat some good teams. Virginia Tech was a ranked opponent. Pittsburgh knocked them off pretty easily. So they're going to come into Notre Dame Stadium. They've played well in Notre Dame Stadium before. And, it's going to be a tough game. I hate to say it. It's going to be a tough game. Notre Dame needs to maintain their focus and not lose the edge that they lost in 2002. After winning 8 straight, they lost 3 straight. So Brian Kelly's staff is determined to not make that happen again.
Injuries. Is there anybody we should be concerned about on Notre Dame?
No real key injuries right now. George Atkinson III was sick. He did not make the trip to Norman, Oklahoma for last week's game. I expect to see him back in uniform, and, I expect to see him get some touches. He's been the 3rd-string running back, if you will. He's scored touchdowns this year. He's put up yards, but he's going to probably get some touches, and I think he's going to be productive this week.
Tom, any final thoughts?
What a wonderful and special season this is. Keep the focus, and Notre Dame fans, if you're watching other games, root for LSU to beat an undefeated Alabama and root for USC to beat an undefeated Oregon.
Well, Fighting Irish fans, that's all the time we have this week. Join us next week, same time.
Same station.
For the Tom and Tom Show. I'm Tom.
And I'm Tom.
And we are here for one reason and one reason only.
Notre Dame football.